Welcome to Becoming Parents Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Campbell. I'm a doula in Washoe County, Nevada, a Medicaid provider, a lactation educator, childbirth educator, and mom of 18. You can find me and connect on doulainreno.com. Remember, give a shout out to those who are brave enough to share their stories with us on how they have become parents. Let's dive in. Welcome to Becoming Parents Podcast. I'm the host, Jennifer Campbell, and I'm so excited. I have Dr. Liz on today. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm really excited to be chatting with everybody. So thank you, Jennifer.
I am really excited about this. Very different. I'd love for you to just jump in and start sharing your parenting journey.
Oh, okay. Well, I love that. You see, my parenting journey actually started, 36 years ago. My husband and I've been, well, not 36, say 34-ish years ago. My husband and I have been married 36 years. And
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. We've been together about 38 years. And I want to just kind of like preface this that I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a connections coach. And for 38 plus years, I have been involved in the trade, so to speak, of marriage and family and all those issues. So I would have thought I was pretty well schooled for when we became parents. And that's
So
how I
you
showed.
you started your business before you were licensed
Yes.
before? Okay,
Absolutely.
excellent.
Yeah,
That's great.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it was great. And yeah, it's been wonderful. I was a licensed marriage family therapist. Met my husband in that journey. And then we started having our home, the picket fence. We got our home, then we got married, then we had kids. Made everybody crazy in the small town from my parents' side of it. But we started off with daughter number one. And I want to just share my personal experience. And I appreciate that because some people think that because I studied this and studied it for a long time, that I would have had things down. I would have rolled straight through all of life's bumps, and I didn't. And in fact, I wanted to share one really funny one about, so we go and have our daughter,
Okay.
and despite all my plans, we're going to have a week off before she comes, and then the house is going to be ready. Well, no, it went into labor the last day of my client load. After quite a while, we ended up having a C-section, emergency
Oh,
C-section. Yeah, it was okay. It was cool. It's funny, they raised your hand like, are they supposed to be moving? Can you feel them moved? And then I think she's stuck, kind of thing. And so we go to that. So all my plans are derailed, right? And so we have a baby that nurses round the clock. No one
yep.
explained about total exhaustion and being this, hormonal mess. And so I really want to level set that whatever folks are experiencing, it's very real and it's very like normal, but you don't have to go at it alone. And so one of these nights, the baby cries. And I think I don't want to get out of bed. So here's where the little evil mini me sits on there. I'm not the nice therapist that says, let's talk about it. I pretended to be asleep and kicked my husband awake. Okay. And then I pretend to wake up after, and he goes, I'll go get her. Right. That's okay. Well, that worked one time. So I tried it a second time, and it worked the second time. The third time, my husband quietly, he's so funny. He says, I know you hurt her, and I know you're kicking me awake. All you have to do is just say, go get the baby. I'm too tired. If I'm asleep. He goes, and so I said, okay. He says, you beat me awake again, and you're going to go get her. I'm like, okay, heels up. So that was my first leap into the real realities of how kind of low or vulnerable I could be and break all the rules of not communicating and not talking about it. But things got better, and we had a second child, and so I kind of learned from those experiences. My journey with children have made me a better person as well as a better professional. I know that a lot of the advice that I was giving BC before children wasn't as real and as helpful as it is now. So.
And I've heard that a lot interviewing for almost 7 years now.
Yeah.
A pediatrician and anyone insert career option here, right? The second
Yes.
they have kids, they're not the same anymore. And I remember a
Mm-mm.
pediatrician saying, now I understand why parents are asking me all the questions that they're asking me.
Yeah. Yeah.
before kids, she felt like, why would you ask? Like, why am I the expert? Because there's no one else they're going to. You see your OB at 6 weeks, you
Oh,
get
yeah,
the okay, you have
out the
no
door.
one to ask questions to. So I think I love that you were a therapist first and then kicked your husband. I mean, the
It's
the
very
the
real.
joy I feel like just
Yeah.
just
How
because,
low can you go, right?
well, because
Yeah,
you have
it's real.
skills that a lot of us don't have
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
by having your doctorate
mm-hmm.
and giving therapy to people. And yet when you become a parent, it throws everything off. And that's a
Yeah,
lesson I want women to hear, that
please, yeah.
you are normal feeling
Mm-hmm,
thrown off. So you got it together, figured things
mm-hmm,
out better, had your second child. Did that one go
mm-hmm.
better?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it was so wonderful. We had a German midwife because
Yes.
we had moved different. She was wonderful. She checked me out and said, I'm going to send you back home. Go get a nice warm bath, to have some scrambled eggs and orange juice. And I said, won't I throw up? She says, yep, we want you to throw up. Went back, 4 hours of not even little labor, and out came baby, no meds, no Terry, no nothing, and so that was a VBAC kind of thing in the world where they didn't get.
Yay.
So she was wonderful, and so you think this is a perfect little child. Or this child slept all the time. The first day she got home, we're thinking, holy smoke! I woke up and she's like, 6 hours straight. Oh my God, baby's dead, baby's dead, panic. So I had a whole different type of child to raise. So that's what else I want to let people know, that just because for our situation, they're both daughters, um, they're very different
Yeah.
individuals. They came out in different, and parenting was different. And we think we got the first one because she's very engaging and wants to be out with people. And so her timeouts were very, very important to her. She wanted to avoid that. Our second one's like, hey, give me a timeout, come get me in a couple hours. I'm cool. No, I mean, so if she had to do timeout with the family, or so parenting is going to be different, and that's okay. Um, and you're going to have different styles. My
Hmm.
husband and I have much different styles in some areas, and then we have to come together. The key that I think that would be important for both men and moms and dads to hear, and I think grandparents in the area, is that one, it's something that the mom and dad get to decide on how it's going to be, but
Right.
it's important to recognize that, for me, like my husband had a different style, and his style was actually better. Like sometimes playing and the roughhousing was actually better than like, oh, let's just keep everybody here because I don't want them riled up before they go to bed. Um, Coming up with a way for both parents to share their perspective on raising a daughter or a son, and I'll put a pin drop in that if that's okay. I'll come right back to it, but
Yeah.
each has different styles, and we want to throw those out on the table and talk about it. And if there's things that make you uncomfortable or bring up old triggers from maybe
Hmm.
growing up, if that was like you thought, oh, that's too rough, and that's going to lead into something else, like tickling was a fun thing, and then sometimes some parents took it too far, and so
Right.
maybe tickling starts to trigger somebody, something like that. So that's important to do that. I think it's also important to recognize that the gender of our children does potentially trigger things of self-worth or old hurts,
Mm.
or I want to say undiscussed or even unknown expectations. I, I've seen some men like be harder on their sons
Hmm.
than they are on their daughters. And I had one couple in particular we worked with, and he's already up into now he's in the teens. And this stuff doesn't just go away. It just keeps morphing if we don't understand what's driving us. And what it finally came out is this gentleman was able to articulate, and they were working with me. He's raising a son, and he values the son being able to be a good partner for a future wife and
Hmm.
for future children. And he wanted his son to know how to have good work ethics, how to save money, how to be safe and considerate. So he was pretty strict with his son about this area. And the wife was more permissive because she felt that he's only going to be young once. He needs to go like sow his oats and have fun. And so they had to really uncover those and then work together so they could parent their child really effectively.
I have two comments. One is, I think, and I would love to hear your
Mhm,
thoughts on this. I think when people get together and get married and they feel like it's hard, it's a big transition. And I'm not
mhm.
minimizing that transition, but
Yeah,
having kids,
yeah. But it's fun,
like
but it's different. Uh-huh.
it can be, but you really, like, you're talking about triggers and different parenting styles. And I feel like parenting brings things up you didn't even realize were there. And
Absolutely.
definitely the way you interact, it can change dramatically. And that's not a bad thing, but it's definitely, people are like, yeah, we've been married, it's great, we're gonna have kids now. Like, that's the easier transition. And I think, I know you don't know you don't know what's gonna hit you. The other
Right.
thing, when I was
Yeah.
raising my kids, and I was never raised around, like, I didn't have many uncles or grandparents. I
Mm,
did not have functioning male examples or cousins or
okay.
anything like that, right? So I had my first boy, they pee
Yeah.
all over you, and I'm thinking,
Okay.
so they're like,
Cover, cover.
they're
Yeah.
just wired different. And I thought,
Uh-huh.
if he has dolls to play with like his sisters, and he'll learn sensitivity and caretaking, and he put his doll in a dump truck and slammed it against the wall, fell, hit his head in on the trim and got stitches. And I was like, yeah, they're just not wired. They are not wired. This is not.
That's funny because my husband, when the girls were squabbling, goes, "Do they always scream like that?" Because I mean, because he had brothers and sisters, but he'd never like been fully absorbed with all of the. Yes, they
It's
do.
so different. I was like, okay, I am very wrong on this whole give the boys a doll and they'll be sensitive caretakers.
Yeah,
That's not necessarily how it works. They're
they've been
very they're
creative.
they're very creative. Yep. Yep. Smashed the doll in the dump truck and got stitches.
Hmm.
But, I mean, and the different personalities, like you said, two girls, same
Hmm.
genetics,
Hmm.
completely different. And so
Absolutely.
I had one of my girls, her timeout was I removed books. And it was like you
Mm.
could not do anything worse to this kid.
Yes,
So
yes.
you may have kids that say you don't treat us the same. No, I don't, because you're not the
Hmm.
same. The goal is the same, to
Hmm.
understand consequence. Or
Yeah,
but the consequences
right.
absolutely not the same. Right.
Mm.
So it's good to know, like, you have permission to do it differently because your
Right,
child's personalities are so unique.
right. And you're not necessarily playing favorites or anything like that because
Mm-mm.
you're easier on one. If one is more responsive
Mm.
to your redirect, and it may be because they're driven and they're to pay attention to that. They may the other one that doesn't necessarily pay attention might have the ADHD, ADD kind of thing or not, or that just might be part of you know, their internal decision making and they're just not that interested in hearing and respecting your no. So yeah, they might have different harder
Mhm.
I would say punishment or consequences or lose different privileges. And that's okay because children and as they get older, they will actually read you probably faster than you are catching up. And so they learn how to play you or to split you and your husband. And
Mhm.
we were talking like real deal stuff here. At one point in time, we started very quickly realizing that I had said no and my husband had then said yes. He didn't know that, one of the kids had come to me first. And I said, no, we
Mhm.
can't do that because of X, Y, or Z. Had he known what I knew on the calendar, he would have had the same no. But they went to him, they come back, Dad said yeah. And now what's the first thing I want to do? Is get angry with my husband, right? Right? Like, how could you do that? And then but I didn't. I just said, well, wait a minute, I got to talk to Dad. Okay.
Yep.
So the biggest thing is rather than assume for this case, my husband was deliberately, trying to be the nice guy or something like that. I'm going to assume that they didn't know. That's a real important thing as we're having kids or any partner world is to try to keep score in the right way, to
Mm-hmm.
give your spouse, your partners the benefit of the doubt and go have a
Yep.
conversation instead of a conflict. So I
Right.
went over there and said, hey, nice thing. I don't know. She just came to me and said, you said yes. I had already told her no. He goes, oh, really? She didn't tell me that. Okay, okay. And you're right. I said the reason I said no was because have something else going on. Early the next day, no sleepover kind of thing. That's what they want for
Right.
sleepover. He says, "Oh, I gotcha. She didn't tell me that." So we quickly talked about our strategy, and then we brought it back out to him and said, "Hey, here's the thing. If you go ask parent number one, and you get a no, then if you're going to go talk to the other one, you need to let parent number two know that you've already talked and the answer was a no. I need something else. Number two, if you don't obey that rule, you lose whatever it was you were going to get to go. It's a complete washout. And so we started having more of a collaboration, even to the point where he said that, hey, well, let me talk to dad and see what's going on. Or he said, hey, let me talk to mom and see what's going on. And we also would cue him up. Hey, have you talked to mom or dad yet? Yeah, they said,
Mm-hmm.
so they'll still try, but I guess but the biggest thing is we're going to be stressed, we're going to be tired, we're going to have too many things on our plate, we may
Mm-hmm.
be tapped out or touched out, and rather than attack and assume your sweetie is doing this deliberately or they're a complete idiot or whatever it might be, let's just get curious, reserve judgment, and go from there.
Agreed. Yeah,
Okay.
you kind of have to set ground rules, especially when they're
Mhm,
teenagers. I'm like, if you
mhm,
walk in from
yeah,
work, but I've been here all day, don't you dare
mhm,
ask dad. He has no
yeah,
idea what's been
mhm.
going on today. So some of it is accountability for the kids too, that they're trying to ask the parent they think they're going to get the better answer from.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Which one's easy?
And
And if you ever want to play some fun games sometime, you guys out there, ladies in the world, or us men in the world, sit down sometime around dinner table and say, which parent is the easy one? Or if you wanted to have seconds on, say, dessert, or if you want to do,
uh-huh.
which one would you get? And they can
Yes.
tell you.
Yep. Yep.
Emma,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yep, that's true.
definitely.
Did you have more than two kids?
No,
Okay,
we had
so you
just
had two
two
girls.
girls. Hmm.
I want to move forward because you had already been a therapist and you told me it changed significantly after having kids. So
Hmm.
if you want to touch on that, but I see like people can see in the show notes all the things you do, reconnecting couples,
Yeah.
fulfilling communication, restarting sexy time. That's a big one, a big one.
Yes.
Post baby changes. So
Yeah.
you're very geared towards parents who have somehow had a breakdown somewhere in part at least of their relationship and how to get that back. So I w- I want to jump into how your practice changed from
Okay.
then
Okay.
to
Sure.
now because you're doing some amazing things to help couples.
Oh, thank you very, very much. Well, I sort of cut my teeth, that type of thing, on
Mhm.
in the early years of really women and
Yeah.
children. And I worked with a lot of abuse, custody evaluations and things. And I also had some men, but I've been doing this for quite a while. And in earlier time frame or mindset, men didn't necessarily gravitate towards the therapy world or
Yeah.
towards they would willingly go, but it just wasn't that it as much as now I think I have at least a 50-50 call. Men will call and say, hey, I need help with my marriage. I'm not understanding what's going on. I no longer do I have the men that pull out the list and go, yeah, okay. My wife says, here's a list that can I give that to you? That's what I got to work on. If that's what they're going, no, no, let's put the list aside. And what do you think? Um, so my world has evolved with that. I think the biggest thing for me was realizing the shift from focusing 100% on my business and enjoying it. Being a mom and a parent had me want to change up the time I spent and how I was present with my family and growing in that respect. So the idea of continuing to create and grow and expand my business because I already had other people working with me. We set that aside and really it was more of me and we had some really great adventures. We traveled with the kids and had lived in Colorado, we've lived in Idaho with the horses and the critters. And so I think having walked this path, what it's done for me is realize that my passion is to get to people before they're trying to repair this disconnect. It's so much easier when, you step on the scale and you're only 20 pounds heavier than you want to, than 60 pounds.
Yeah.
And so if we use that kind of analogy in the relationships, because statistically right now, the average couple waits 6.9 years, or say 7 years before they go get help. Well, 7 years at the
Wow.
average is a lot of time of bad habits, nasty fights, feeling that we've made a mistake, the kids experiencing this disconnect. Because remember, the kids are all eyes and ears, and they're seeing mom and dad give each other the cold shoulders or those kind of looks. They feel it in the house. I also talk to people about my parents, like, watch your animals. Do the dogs or the cats like leave the room, or they get really clingy? Watch your little thing that, well, we never, I don't pay attention to that, too angry. So that may be something that you want to look at. I had
Yeah.
one couple that they brought their little 2-year-old in, darling little girl, and she's in there just playing around quiet. And then they started cranking up on their fight. And all of a sudden, the little girl is going over and she's clinging to the mom's knee, just kind of looking around, but you can start to see that anxiety and that concern going. They're totally locked into the conflict. And so I said, let's just put a time out. Let's look and see, where's your daughter right now? What was she doing and where she's doing is now. And so it's helping people start to see the impact of even the timing of having that conversation. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that conflict is bad. We do need to have conflict conversations. And that's one of the big things that I work with people in my Couple Smart Restart. My focus is coaching and really getting to play on people's strengths. Those people's strengths are they loved each other, they were connected, they were invested in being better, they lacked skills. It was stuff that you don't get taught in school. All right. And even I went to school. Remember, I'm the one that kept my husband awake at night. Okay. And so I really realized. So we maybe don't have the right skills, or we don't know how to apply them. And so when I'm working with couples, I get a real intimate glimpse into their world, and I help them come up with the strategies and the how do you have a timeout, how to stay connected, and how do you come back to one of those conversations and even find the time. And it's critical. So I guess my passion when you talk about this is to get in front of as many divorces as possible,
Right.
many separations as possible, and just to start healing. Because even I've seen even the most distant and disconnected relationships fall back in love with each other. It doesn't cost a lot of money. I think I've been talking about with my husband, like, when are we finding time to do stuff? And we look back and we miss some of the moments of dating more directly with ourselves we had. And so I'm
Yeah.
really working with folks about finding those little snippets.
It's so easy too to get sidetracked because going on dates was huge. And I had we'd
Mhm,
both been divorced,
mhm,
and
mhm,
my husband remarried and lost his second wife. And
mhm.
for me, I was like, the dating thing, we blended families, and dating is really important. And then then it's easy to get off track because we were so busy with work and kids
Mhm,
that when we
mhm.
finally sat down alone on a date, I really wanted to verbally vomit all the things about the kids and him that I was
Yeah.
struggling with. And we had
Mhm.
a date once, and bless his heart, he's much nicer than I am, but
So's mine.
yeah, so much nicer. People are like, "Oh, you're so sweet." I'm like, "Yeah, you didn't get the sweet one." But he said we need to set boundaries on our dates
Mhm,
and not talk about if there are things that we like need to quickly address with the kids because no ears are around, that's fine.
mhm,
But I don't want to talk about the kids, and I don't want to talk about a relationship. This is the
mhm.
time for us to reconnect. And I felt
Yeah.
so bad because you don't realize you're getting into this cycle. I was like, great date night. I get to vent about everything that's bugging me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, I totally agree, and I apologize, but then we need to set aside the time that we can have
Mhm.
conversations that are out of the kids' earshot, where we can have the
Yes,
conflict conversations.
right,
And
right.
I
Yep,
I said,
absolutely.
"I feel like this is the only time we have." So we did. We shifted things so that date night was fun and
Mhm.
reconnecting, and any
Yeah.
conflict conversations, we would sit in the car in the driveway.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's beautiful. It's yeah,
Yeah.
it's quiet,
So
quiet.
you need to figure it out, because you can get off track so easily and make something great become, like a thorn in your
Mhm.
marriage. And
Right.
yeah.
And one of the trends that I see, most folks do, and I don't think it's even a conscious thing, is that we only come to each other when there's a problem, right? So like in
Yeah.
school, you're just sitting in school and all of a sudden if they come to the principal's office, like, oh, what did I do wrong, right? And so that's how that dynamic plays out in relationships. So I have, when I work with couples, and I also have a free, it's a couples connection checklist, but it's
Mhm.
three things to do daily, three things to do weekly, and three things to do monthly, and you can adjust it to things. But it's designed that we still keep a pulse on each other, and it's kind of like for you, it's like here's what the kids did right, and here's what the kids didn't do right, and oh, we got a plumber coming, on Thursday type of stuff. Um, and so that when I say, hey, let's talk, it's not going to be, oh boy, I'm in trouble now. What's she going to complain about? We've already had a pulse daily, and the
Yeah.
daily stuff is also more importantly, hey, thank you. I love you. You're so sweet. That was nice of you to do the dishes. All those little things. What do you need right now? And so we're trying to keep that positive flow, but keep the couples together and connected. And it's very easy to get I want to say disconnected. We used to like divide and
Mhm.
conquer chores. One would run to Home Depot, one would run to the market, but we weren't having shared experiences. We were knocking chores off the list. And
Yeah.
in time savers, I
Mm.
totally understand. Um, and when you're also doing that regular contact, you can start to see if something's off with your spouse, your partner. I have a couple that just recently had a baby, and she's now working, and he's working from home, and he's watching their child. And he says, you're coming home, and just like you're like, you don't want to. And then we started talking. She realized she didn't have words for it, but he felt it. And I said, so you're all touched out. She says, yeah. I'm all touched out. I'm pumping at work. I come
Mhm.
home and I feed the baby. I'm with customers all day long at work, and I miss that little bit of time when I just got to do what I wanted to do. I feel guilty if I want to like disappear for a little while because you've been with the baby all the time. And so we really started talking about what we feel and the facts and how the two of them can manage that. Kudos to this hubby that pointed it out 3 or 4 months into their child and her returning to work so that it didn't build. And
Yeah.
kudos to her for doing that true confessions about what she felt guilty about. And then, with me able to like, hey, it's absolutely normal. You do feel touched out, and hubbies can feel neglected and be confused
Mhm.
and not really know because they haven't had their body go through these things. And so I think that that's real helpful. One of the things that you talked about with and kudos to your hubby who said we need to set
Mm.
boundaries,
Yeah.
talking topics, is that many of my
Mm.
couples have forgotten the fun of the early years and being that curiosity where everything was new and exciting. And so in both of my coaching programs, either with the Couple Smart Restart or I have a standalone weekend reconnect, um, there's the program, the Weekend Reconnect, is designed for, I don't know, an ideal world where a couple goes away for a long weekend and reconnects and works on the marriage. That's pretty different than the average person's, at least my world was. And so I designed it for bite-sized date night topics. And
Mm.
so many of my couples will just grab the first thing and say, let's to get better communication, or let's do my 333, which builds more appreciation for each other and also start to get some reciprocity going back and forth, helping me out. But they'll take the little video, like 10 minutes of me, and then the worksheet, and that's what they talk about. They work on at their dinner or they go to a park and they're sitting here working on this. Its focus is on the relationship in a positive way, as well as
Mm-hmm.
uncovering some of those things. And that's been really, really beneficial for folks to say, how do I get started? We
Yeah.
know some, we don't want to be like our friends that
Mm-hmm.
are getting divorced or that kind of talk behind each other's back about how bad they are.
Right.
So,
I know, you talk about love languages, which I
mhm,
love. I love love languages, and
mhm,
we're both quality time, physical touch. I'm a complete
mhm,
split, and he's a little bit more quality time than physical touch, but fortunately, we at least speak the same language. But
mhm,
you're talking about this, and I am not words of affirmation. Like, I score 0
mhm.
for gifts. It doesn't mean that I don't appreciate getting something.
Mhm.
I appreciate the time you put in thinking about me because I'm quality
Yeah,
time. So,
right.
but I'm not words of affirmation and still, and neither is he. But like this morning, I was driving in to work out with my daughter and son-in-law, and I
Uh-huh.
put on this like 90s hip hop station, and this song came on, and I texted him, he's white boy that raps, you know. And I was like, I was just listening to this song and thinking about you rapping, and it's one of my like, I love it when he does it. It's one of my best memories. It's also a
Uh-huh.
little sexy. And
Uh-huh.
so
Both are good.
oh yeah, it's definitely
Yeah.
one of those. I'm like, trigger. But even though words of affirmation isn't a big deal in our relationship, I love what you said about pointing out the things that are really positive. I could have just smiled and thought about it and never
Mhm.
said a word.
Right.
And
And
I think we do that a lot. I think we're irritated when the barista gets our order wrong, and we're happy to let them know how they messed it up,
yes.
but we
Mhm.
don't say, "Hey, your voice on the intercom made my morning. Keep it up." We don't
Mhm.
take those 2 seconds to just give people that positive reinforcement. We're
Mhm.
very geared negatively, and so I just wanna reiterate how important I think that is in your entire life, whether you're at the drive-through, in everything that you do, and
Mhm.
that we don't know what that person is going through or their stress
Mhm.
level. And like, who cares if your coffee's messed up? There's some things I just feel like we get really stuck on, and
Yeah.
we should really let them go. And then our spouses, we're not telling them, oh my gosh, I was thinking about you rapping and I got a little winky winky in the car, giggling to
Right.
myself, right?
Right.
He, who needs to know that? He does. He needs to
Oh,
know
yeah.
that. Right. So I
Absolutely.
love that you said that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's just instant, it's free, it's fun, it's genuine,
Mhm.
and he gets like, "Oh, I still got it," or "She's just thinking about me." How neat is
Right.
that, right? And you
Right.
don't have to be a big words, affirmation person, but you can write little notes.
Yeah.
Just little sticky notes or put, cute little stuff on the whiteboard. My husband is he's a really good quick artist. He's just hilarious. And so we have a little whiteboard, and when I would take the dogs for a walk, I would just say, "Hey, take him for a walk, time I'm going." And I'd come back and he'd have, if it was really hot outside, he might have a little caricature of me, sweating or, it'd be fun.
Right.
Or he's, so we use that. And I think it's important to say, put whatever little bits of joy, fun you can put into your world and your interactions. It's huge. There's something called red flags in couples, and if
Mhm.
you're finding that you could give me a list of 20 things or 10 things that your spouse does wrong all the time. If I said, "What did they do right?" and you pause and you struggle, you might be leaning over to the thing where your focus is on catching them doing wrong instead
Yes.
of catching them doing right. And we got to shift that over,
Mhm.
because we certainly wouldn't want to be doing that to our kids. We wouldn't want people to be doing that to us. So let's start close to home. Right?
Yeah, and I think we need to make sure we do it with our kids because parenting can be exhausting and hard and overwhelming
Mm-hmm.
and all the things,
Mm-hmm.
and it's easy to feel that overwhelm and then see
Mm-hmm.
her like, does she do anything right at 2 years old? Is she ever like,
I
is it
know.
ever gonna be an easy moment? I don't know. And
Right.
if we catch them doing things right, they want
Mm-hmm.
us to catch them again doing things right. So our kids
Mm-hmm.
respond. It doesn't mean that they're
Yeah.
never gonna do things that drive you crazy, but it does mean they like to be recognized doing the things
Right.
that are right. And that's hard. It's
'Cause,
it's sometimes
yeah.
you can have a hard day. It's hard to do with your spouse
Right.
or your kids
Yeah.
or Starbucks. I mean, like it
Right.
I'm not minimizing the challenge, but
No. And
yeah.
I know that, and I know 100% that I get on their nerves too, or got on their nerves
Yeah.
too. I mean, not this saint that just walks around and goes like, "Oh, I do no wrong. I'm just perfectly nice." So recognizing that we can become abrasive, or like, "Oh God, here she goes again," in
Yeah.
their lives, and so there's no harm, no foul in catching them doing good, and or in their, even just in the words that we use. Let's say they did something that there's a new thing out and they're supposed to be like wiping the crumbs off the kitchen counter, let's say that type of thing, and they've been doing okay for a while, but then it's messy again. You might want to just say, hey, it's not like you, okay, it's not like you to leave the crumbs out on or thing, or to eat the last cookie without them. When we say something, it's not like you, what's going on? One, we're reserving judgment for ourselves, but two, we're helping them mentally see themselves in a better place.
Right.
Like, it's not like you to just,
Mhm.
text your friend and tell them, to go whatever, like what's going on. And that opens some space instead of just coming in and attacking.
Yeah.
Um, so
It
words
can
are
take a
powerful.
conscious the words are powerful, and it really
Mhm.
takes a conscious effort. Really.
Mhm.
I mean, I
Mhm.
think parents need to realize that it's easy to say these things and following through on them, but I can tell you, I did an experiment with my kids. We had 10 kids in high school all at the same time, and I was on the phone with somebody, and I said, I appreciate you. And my kids laughed at me. They're like, you tell people that you appreciate them a lot. And I'm like, let's do an experiment for 1 week.
Mhm.
Every time a friend, a teacher, anyone does something that you appreciate, I want you to look at them and say, wow, thank you. I really appreciate you. Not that, not
Mhm.
whatever. I want you to use that
Yeah.
verbiage. And at the end of the week, they were like, holy cow, people light up when you look at them and say,
Mhm.
thanks, I really appreciate you. And I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, now you'll never not say it to people because you just saw the impact that you made by doing nothing really. It took
Mhm.
no effort for you to say that. So,
Mhm.
I mean, I think there's a good, like, play some games, give yourself some challenges, have some lessons, and see
Yeah.
how people respond, because it makes a really huge impact in the life of someone else. And you don't know what they're going through, that those words might have gotten them through something.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, those are great
Yeah.
conversations.
Right, and even like look at your face and stuff like that. I remember when that you shared that. I remember back in junior high, it was really tough making friends. Oh, maybe some of you guys think like that. And I saw this little article that said other people are just as concerned, or just as lonely, or just as whatever, worried, scared type of thing. So just smile. So I did one of those
Yeah.
experiments. I smiled. I just walked down the hallway and smiled. And all within a few days, the same people that were walking in the halls would smile back at me. I thought, wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. And so if you translate that even into your home, maybe
Yeah.
you're coming in and you've had a really long day, or you haven't had a sleep. What's your face saying? Do you smile at your partners? Do you smile at the kids? Do they, that even that facial stuff can help lift the mood, or have people start to respond to you differently. Uh, and I know we're going to wind up pretty soon, but
Yeah.
there was one really smart lady, and she had four daughters. And she said, I'm so tired of, I walk into a room and they're like, why are you mad, mom? She's like, I'm not mad. I was happy and stuff. And then she got to thinking, she went and looked it up. She had all these wrinkles on her forehead. And so she quietly went and had Botox. And she said, I'm just going to do a little experiment. She's like, I've never done anything like this before. So the wrinkles disappear, walking in the same mood, and like, hey, mom, how are you doing?
Uh,
And so she gave it a try, and she says, do you see what's different? She says, why? I said, I'm the same person I was last week, but why are you, yeah, well, you're not mad anymore. She said, what's my wrinkles?
they're my very focused wrinkles. I'm very,
Yeah, Yeah, and that was she. Yeah, she was she was a very intense woman, but she wasn't mad at all, and so she
Right.
was like concentrated. And I give her credit for having 4 daughters. Hats off to you, 10 kids, and that's a lot of moving targets there.
We have 18, but we're not going to talk about
Okay,
that. We're not going to talk about that. I
I
wanna
love
wrap
it.
up by saying in the show notes, you have
Mhm.
3 freebies for couples to
Yes.
utilize and
Mhm.
a free complimentary phone call. Can you end by kind of sharing what that phone call looks like?
Yeah, actually, it's a Zoom call. So they see me like this, okay? And so what they would do is just grab the link, look at the calendar, and find a day and time that works for both of them. They'll get on, and there'll be a little information that they can give me some background, so I kind of know what they're wanting and what the struggles might be if they feel comfortable. But that helps me. We'll sit in there and we'll chat, and I'll help them come away with some strategies that work for them, that they can do a takeaway. Maybe they're having like the issue with the kids going, dividing the parents, or parents can't get
Mhm.
on the same parent. Anyway, we'll talk about that, and I'll give them some strategies that they can try and work with. And then also, if they want to learn more about working with me within my coaching programs, where they get the one-on-ones, and we have WhatsApp, and they have the We Can Reconnect, all those things. We can chat about that too. But it's really there. My goal again is to be available and help people get ahead of the divorce, or ahead of thinking, well, this is the best we can do. And this is what long-term relationships look like. We just grow apart and we hate each other, and the kids go, like, no, no.
No.
Okay.
So much more
So
fun.
yeah. So it is truly complimentary, and we'll spend 30 minutes in the Zoom, and they can be together on the call, or they can be in the same location, or they can be in separate locations. It's cool. And technology is wonderful.
Dr. Liz,
Mm.
thank you so much for sharing your story and all of your
Oh,
information.
thank
It's
you,
been really
Jennifer. I
fun.
love it. We're gonna have to catch up. I'm gonna have to
We're
18. Good Lord. I say a Disney movie or something like that.